Go live. Okay. Hey, I kind of remember how to do this thing.
Hey,
All right.
all coming back.
Yeah. Luckily, they make it easy. I should pull up my mute button, though. That would be good. Okay. What? Okay, yeah. There we go. Perfect. Okay. All right. Are you all set?
All set.
Sweet. Get back to the notes so I remember what to say. Oh, it's gonna be a good day. Good show. All right. Welcome to episode 28 of the TCCG Roundtable. We're your hosts, dragonrider and RonMexico. How's it going?
Hey, I'm doing great. Happy to get back into it. It's been a little break, and it's exciting to go over a whole lot of things that have happened in the downtime.
Yes. So definitely, I know people are like, don't apologize for medical stuff, but I also feel bad because I love talking about card games and I love doing things like this show. So just I guess talk about kind of what's been going on for us the last little bit. Yeah, definitely an unintended hiatus from the show. We're getting back to it. I guess a quick brief rundown. I had I think we probably talked about it the last time that we were live. Maybe is that I was like, okay, cool. We had I had just gone to TCG Con Denver, and then was getting a job, and then started said job, and then my body said, "Oh no, no," and
Yup.
basically broke down for an entire month, and I have been a bunch of doctor visits. Had to go to a specialist. Got a diagnosis finally, which answers a lot of things that have been going on with me for 15 to 20 years. So, yay to finally know what is actually going on with my body. So that's wonderful. But if anybody is interested more in that, I did make a kind of long post about it on my Twitter. But yeah, it's felt like a very slow kind of recovery, get back to actually being able to move around and have some energy to actually do stuff. So we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah. I mean, it's rough to have gone through that. I'm really happy to see you back doing what you love to do, and you know at the very least you have the information. It is horrible not knowing, like, what is going on. Why do these things keep happening? Even if the information is not good news, it gives you a plan to make. It gives you a way to understand how to deal with it, and I'm at least really happy that you got that, even if uh you would have preferred, not having the news that you got. It's still like, okay, I know what's going on now. I can deal with it, and I'm just happy to see you back.
Yes, thank you. Me too. Glad to be back. And I will say, for anybody that's listening to this, it's not like a life threatening, diagnosis or anything. I will be fine. It is manageable. What I have is called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So HEDS. Some people might have heard of EDS before. Yeah, it's not curable, but it's manageable. And there's a lot of things that affect various parts of my body and various systems within my body. So like you said, at least I know now and I can kind of work on like managing it. Um, but yeah, it's that was a very, very long month of basically just like being on bed rest and not even being able to like move or do anything and just completely resting. Which honestly, I probably was also super, super burnt out. So I probably needed it in terms of like,
Yeah.
like resting. Turns out that's kind of important, I guess, or something. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Who knew? Who
Yeah.
knew the resting was helpful? Yeah.
Exactly. But there is, I guess, some good in it. Is that, like you said, now I know and I can kind of address things. But for me, I think that that means going forward, probably quite a bit less live streaming, just so that I'm able to like get up more frequently, take breaks, or take care of myself or whatever I need to be doing. But that is, I feel like, good news for things like the podcasts and YouTube because it is much easier for me to do those kind of things. So that's pretty exciting. And another thing that I feel like I can definitely do and manage that is also a benefit for me that was kind of in the works before all of this happened is that instead of casting the Supergirl Gamer Pro tournaments for Hearthstone this year, I have taken over now as the tournament organizer. So I will be kind of running the brackets and things behind the scenes. We have the two qualifiers coming up at the end of July, and then the championship, top eight, the first Saturday of August. So, like, it's cool because I can manage that, and if I have to get up real quick, like move around or stretch or get more to drink, it's a lot easier for me to be able to do those kind of things if I'm not on camera casting for 4, 5, 6 hours straight. So
Well, that's pretty exciting. I mean, I think congratulations are in order because
nice.
tournament
Thank
organizing
you.
is pretty difficult to do. I've been on the casting side and I've talked to the tournament organizers as like a million things are going on at once. It's like, you know what? I kind of feel like you're uniquely suited to the role of handling a million things going on at once. I don't know. You had like a little bit of practice with that. So I think that's fantastic and I'm looking forward to you stepping into that new role.
Yeah, yeah. I have been very excited. I've already been doing a ton of work, and that's another really interesting thing is like just these tournament organizer roles, and I feel like we could tie this in, anything. We've talked about people who like run big events or people who own game stores or even, game the people that like make the games that we talk about. Sometimes you really don't see all of the work and all the things that go into what they're actually doing. You just kind of see the end result and not all of the work that went into it. But I've already like I think in a I don't know, it's probably like an 18-hour period. I spent 12 hours of the 18 hours like going through extremely detailed like the rule book for the Supergirl event and like tweaking wording and like making adjustments and noting what adjustments I made and like all sorts of stuff. And then getting the actual like bracket, not brackets, but the actual like tournament page and registration stuff all set up. So it's been, a lot of build up, constantly like checking to make sure, okay, are any of the players, chatting in the Discord, do they have any questions that I need to address and answer quickly for them? It's been constant, but yeah, I'm excited for it. I love doing that kind of stuff and it kind of makes me feel like I get to help and kind of take care of people in a way. So it's a good role.
It's
I'm
good.
I'm very excited for it.
Nice little peek behind the curtain too. Just like
Yeah.
a few things that go into it. Definitely is something I think you'll do great in.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, what have you had going on, Ron? I know you said you mostly do play Hearthstone, but have you been playing more, less? Have you been playing other stuff? What have you been up to?
It's been all Hearthstone and streaming lately for me. My partner's still finishing up nursing school, and she's been pretty busy with just getting ready for like the major test, and there's like a predictor thing and such. So when I'm not streaming Hearthstone or helping her, I am sleeping. I'm trying to get some sleep, and just be like refreshed and ready enough for the next day. It's been fairly busy this last month. We're kind of at the tail end of it. Where it's like her final 6 weeks, and then she's got a graduation really soon, and then she's got the huge test, and then she can join the workforce. So all that stuff is pretty busy and exciting. But yeah, just as far as the card game sphere is concerned, it's just a whole lot of streaming Hearthstone lately. But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. There's a deck that I really enjoy at the moment, so that's enough for me. If there's one good hunter deck, especially, I am happy. I can survive in Hearthstone until
Yes.
the new expansion and the excitement comes out.
Yeah. What is this? Enjoying the games we play? What? I don't understand this.
I know it's pretty popular in like the top level of competitive Hearthstone to not enjoy playing Hearthstone. Sadly, it's a thing in this current meta too. I think it's largely connected to the fact that there is one priest deck that is kind of everywhere and overtuned when you get to the highest levels of play, and it it kind of makes the experience not very pleasant for players who are jamming hundreds, if not thousands, of games because they're trying to make sure that they get a top 5 finish or something so they can make it to the competitive scene and all that. And all of those streamers, they're looking a little burnt out. They're like, "Oh God, this again." But for me, I'm not playing at the absolute highest level. I play somewhere in like the top 100 usually, and I'm not in striking distance of like top 5. So I just get to enjoy it a little bit more. I'm like, "Oh, it's fine. It's no big deal." Oh, I mean, there's some annoying moments, yeah, but like it's not the grind like some others are experiencing.
Yeah. You've been on the grind though, just in a different sense, I think. Like I think your stream has really been popping off and you've been putting in the work there and you've definitely been like grinding. I don't even want to say like grinding, but I don't know like what else for it. But you've been super consistent and like keeping up with that. So it's been very exciting to see your stream just super popping off like it's been.
Well, thank you. I'm just out here trying my best.
That's all we can do. That's all we can do.
So true.
Well, all right. Are you ready to get back into some card game talk and talk first about what you got for the term of the week?
Let's do it. So, term of the week this week, we're going to talk about summoning sickness. It may have other terms here and there. Sometimes in some games, they may not even really refer to it as a term, but just describe the condition of what's happening. And all it really is a way to make sure that the games don't just get like mega broken immediately, because summoning sickness means in basically any game that has this, uh, it would be a game that involves playing a minion onto the board, or creature, or whatever type of terminology you're using, and that creature is not able to immediately attack. So we want to protect the life totals a little bit here and not say, okay, hey, I can play this gigantic minion that does damage equal to, I don't know, like 60% of your life total. And what if I just played it and it hit you right away, the game's going to end probably pretty fast, right? You didn't even have a chance to react to it. So summoning sickness means that the minion cannot attack, the creature can't attack on the turn that it is played. It has to wait. You play it, and it hangs out there on that board, gives the opponent a chance to react to it, and then it gets to do its thing. And there are ways around it. There are other keywords, usually like rush or charge. Potentially, if you're playing in Hearthstone, charge is pretty frequently used in other card games too, or haste or something. It's all kind of a similar word connected to speed, that would mean that it gets to ignore summoning sickness, but generally kind of an accepted rule, it seems, across multiple card games. If you play a creature onto the board, you don't just get to immediately do something with said creature. It needs to wait. It improves the game balance. It improves the feel of the game. Um, you have back and forth with turns instead of, okay, here it comes, go crazy. And I think it's a really important term, that makes card games what they are, and has them in the state that we like them the most.
Yeah, and I think you brought this up, but there's gonna be different card games that have like slight variations on how it works depending on, their phases of the game, or whatever. And like you said, you might even hear it as different terms. I think the upcoming Disney Lorcana uses some terminology like ink drying or something like that to try to like tie
Yeah,
in,
I
But
got their
yeah,
themes. Yeah,
yeah. So it's the same thing essentially. Like you can't use that, that creature, that minion, that character on the turn that you play it. So yeah, definitely a very common theme across a lot of card games, no matter what they call it or how it's actually implemented. It's pretty steadfast theme for sure. All right. Now we get into the news. Now, again, because it has been a little while, this is probably not everything. I'm sure I have missed some things. And honestly, if we included everything that has happened in all of these card games over the last like 5, 6 weeks, we would be here for like 3 hours, literally just going over news. So we're not going to do that. I tried to just pick some of the like kind of upcoming or like most recent things that have happened. So, jumping in to this week's card game news, for general things coming up, we have Gen Con happening the first weekend of August. So, that is coming up very soon. A ton of different card games are going to be there. I already mentioned Disney Lorcana that's going to be launching very shortly after Gen Con. There's a lot of other new card games that are kind of going to be there, along with the kind of bigger card games as well. So, ton of things going on for that. This is not necessarily directly related to card games, but also in terms of like conventions. BlizzCon has also been announced for this year that it is coming back, and they have already had one of the two ticket sales. The next ticket sales for BlizzCon will be happening on July 22nd. So definitely, I'm sure that when BlizzCon happens in November, probably going to be announcing for card games at least the December Hearthstone expansion. So we'll probably get info on more Hearthstone stuff at that point.
Yep.
And speaking of Hearthstone, they also announced and launched a beta season for a new game mode called Twist, which I think we'll talk a bit more about in our main kind of segment and topic today. But they announced that they have launched this initial beta, season, and this new Twist mode kind of replaced classic mode. So a little interesting that they kind of chose to take classic mode out after having that in for a bit, but that did replace there. And then for Hearthstone as well, they did announce the Titans expansion, and we're kind of in the middle of the reveal season for that. So kind of really, cranking through those reveals, and that will be launching on August 1st, Tuesday, August 1st. Talking about more card game releases and set releases, Flesh and Blood did just release Dusk Till Dawn, which actually came out today as we're recording this, July 14th. So if you are a Flesh and Blood fan, that is out today. You can begin playing that and hanging out with some people. I think they did like pre-release events last weekend, but that's officially out now this weekend. I'm sure Marvel Snap has a lot of stuff going on, but I did not get anything for that. I think, though, they added the thing for Marvel Snap, I would say that's the most recent, is adding the Conquest mode, which I know a lot of people have been pretty excited for and posting about on social media. So lots of new like modes and expansions and sets coming up for these games.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And yet another one, the Lord of the Rings expansion set for Magic the Gathering, both physical cards and for MTG Arena, has also very recently just launched. I think that came out within the last like 2 weeks or so, maybe 3 weeks at the very most, but pretty recent there. And that has been very popular, it seems. Even people who kind of haven't played Magic before or haven't played in a while, kind of drawn back to Magic because of that set.
And who doesn't love Lord of the Rings?
Exactly. I know I have been. I've been trying to play a bit more MTGA with the Lord of the Rings set. So some cool stuff there. Then for Pokemon, the Scarlet and Violet Obsidian Flames expansion will be coming out August 11th. So that is just under a month away. But yesterday, I believe it was, they just also kind of announced and revealed a build and battle stadium set for that Obsidian Flames expansion, which is basically like it's kind of like a big box set that has enough stuff to build 2 different decks. It's got some tokens, it's got some additional booster packs, and basically it's kind of like a mix of a bunch of different stuff that's not necessarily like a, starter bundle that you could pick up, but kind of. It's kind of like a starter bundle in a way, right? Where you have that ability to be able to just build some decks and go. They kind of are advertising it as to be able to play with a friend or do that, but again, all of the packs, the booster packs, these decks that you can build, it's got tokens, it's got all that stuff in there. That will be launching a little bit after the Obsidian Flame set launches. So the set itself is going to be coming out August 11th, and then this build and battle stadium set will be coming out on the 25th. So that box looks pretty cool. Didn't see any pricing on it, so I'm not sure how much that's going to cost, but I'm sure probably in the $50 to maybe $80 range, I would imagine. It seems like a lot of box sets and things like that kind of running in that same price range. And the last kind of big news that I also have is open beta for the DC Dual Force card game is starting today as well. There was a creator weekend, and then they kind of moved into a closed beta weekend, and then a week and a half, 2 week long or so. It was actually pretty short, but they said it was going so well that they're like, we're just going to open beta. They did a short closed beta, and now they are opening that up. So nobody needs any codes or anything to play after today. You can just go to the website, download the game, and log in and play. So if you are a fan of DC or you just want to play a new card game, definitely recommend checking that out. I did play during that creator weekend, and I've been dabbling a bit since then, and I have been enjoying it. They have some really cool things that are pretty creative that really tie in the whole comic book theme, and they even have comic books, like you can play through comic book stories essentially as solo content, which is super, super cool. So there is a lot of stuff with that. Definitely recommend checking that out if you are interested in, like I said, either DC in general or card games and you want to try a new card game.
Yeah, there you go. DC fans finally getting their own card game too. Marvel Snap's been around for too long. DC needed something, so that's
That's
exciting to
right.
see.
That's right. Quite a bit different, though. Quite a bit different from
True.
kind of the direction that Marvel Snap went in terms of like changing how kind of card games are played or viewed. This one goes a little. It's interesting because I don't want to say like more quote unquote traditional card games, but it's slightly more that than like the direction that Marvel Snap went. But yeah, it's pretty neat. I like it a lot, and I think they're definitely already listening to a ton of feedback, making changes, and it seems like the people who have been working on DC Dual Force are very excited to have people playing and checking it out, and it's been really cool. I've been part of that. Like I mentioned, I played in that creator weekend. I've been part of the DC Dual Force like creator, program, creator Discord that they have, and it's been really cool to see the devs in there, chatting and see like their passion and their care for the game and the community as a whole.
That's awesome.
All right. That is what I have for news. Ron, would you like to take it away for some competitive and organized play?
Absolutely. So for competitive and organized play, we've got some big news coming up for Hearthstone in the very near future. First up, Lobby Legends for Battlegrounds is going to be happening next weekend, July 22nd and 23rd. And it's going to be, another big event. Similar to the Masters Tours for Standard, we have Lobby Legends for Battlegrounds. And speaking of Masters Tours, we also do have the next Masters Tour that has been announced. It is coming up August 19th through the 20th, and our 16-player field has been set. We have multiple returning players from the previous Masters Tour who qualified again, and then we've got some new qualifiers as well. Of course, the previous champion Levick didn't really need to qualify for any more Masters Tours because of his victory to kind of get that spot in Worlds. So we won't be seeing returning champ Levick in this Masters Tour, which means we are definitely going to crown a new champion. And out of the, let's see, 5, 8, 10, I believe 10 returning players, um, we've got 6 new faces to the field. So our new players for this go around are Insane, Nagon, Rulian, Deadeye, Renmen, and uh, a, a player some Hearthstone aficionados may recognize. Goes by the name of Gabby. Not sure if you've heard of Gabby. Dragonrider. I've won a couple of Masters tours, no big deal.
No,
uh,
no big deal. Yeah.
yeah, so that'll be really interesting to see how Gabby's arrival shakes up the field. And then we do have um, players that made it in the previous Masters Tour, McBanterface and Meaty and Weak very, very strong players who are looking to bounce back from an 0-2 showing at the last Masters Tour. Um, We've got Gyu and Tansoku, who went 1-2 at the last Masters Tour, looking to make some waves this time around. And then we have some players who had a little bit deeper runs. Gamer RVG, Hemlock, um, both went 2-1. Casey went 2-2 the previous time around, and Pocket Train and Rekvam will also be returning to this Masters Tour, and they went 3-2 and 3-1 respectively. So very exciting field of players. Going to be really looking forward to seeing how that shakes out, and they're going to have to be dealing with a pretty new meta by the time Masters Tour rolls around, so there won't be a whole lot of prep time before, that August 19th and 20th. Of course, the new expansion going to be releasing August 1st, and we'll see how quickly and how well these players adapt in their approximately 3 weeks to get ready. But
Yeah.
that should be exciting to watch.
It's also kind of interesting too, looking at that time frame and you mentioning, their prep, because looking at the calendar, so Tuesday, August 1st is when the expansion launches, like you mentioned, but the kind of cadence of balance patch changes has put, for the most part, about 2 weeks after a set launches, they do a balance patch, which that puts it at Tuesday, August 15th, which is about 4 or 5 days before that
Yeah.
Masters tour. So I would not be surprised to see a balance patch that Tuesday, but maybe they, I don't know, depending on kind of the timing, what changes they might want to make, if it's kind of set, maybe they bump it up and do it like the Thursday or Friday prior to that, so like the 10th or 11th, and gives those
Yeah.
Masters Tour players,
There's a
a little
couple
bit more
things
time. But
they might do with that. Interestingly enough, like I've seen it happen before where they've also been like, yeah, we know the meta's not perfect. We want to balance it soon, but everyone's going to have to suffer until, this particular major sponsored Blizzard event is over. So they might leave the meta as is too until after the Masters Tour as a nod of respect to the players who are preparing for it, and not change the meta. Maybe it's okay, 4 days, good luck. Maybe they bump up the change a little bit and go like, okay, instead of 4 days, you get a week in 4 days, and we won't change this meta. And maybe they'll just leave it as is. And hey, if the meta's real kind of broken or off balance one way or the other, they're like, no, just deal with it. We'll fix it as soon as the Masters Tour is over. So it's going to be interesting to see what they decide
yeah,
to do with that on the dev side.
yeah, and with only 16 players instead of like 400, let's say, like previous Masters tours, I wonder too, because usually they also do give those players, like what do they call them, like master accounts or something like that. So
Hmm.
they could also put, if they do that, they could put those accounts at another patch. Like maybe they just implement the changes ahead of time to allow those players to practice on that server or something. But it also would be hard to do that because then you only have 16 players who are going to practice. So they'd have to practice on the patch, with
Yeah,
each other. And like, I don't necessarily know if that's what they would want to do, but it is just kind of interesting, that timing that you talk about, and to see how they might do that. And is it going to be different, or do they even do anything different in terms of the balance patch because of the esports event, because it's kind of quite a bit different than what we had in the previous years for esports. So it'll be
absolutely.
interesting.
Good point. Um, as far as other competitive and organized play happenings going on, we've mentioned before, and it's still coming very soon. Now it's only a couple months away for Yu-Gi-Oh! The next Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series event will take place in Cancun, and that's September 16th through the 17th of this year. And we also have some exciting Flesh and Blood competitive and organized play news, where Flesh and Blood is going to have USA Nationals at the fabled Westgate Las Vegas Resort. And a calling event will be happening, and that is August 25th through the 27th. And that's all I've got for competitive and organized play news for now.
Awesome. Now, still some big stuff going on. Um, Also, I guess we should mention as well. It didn't type it in there, but the it's about a month out now, but also in the middle of August, the 11th through the 13th of August, for Pokemon is going to be the World Championships in Japan.
Oh my God! Right?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Whoops.
I honestly just thought of that. I was like, oh yeah, because I have been very focused on the VGC side as a
Yeah.
spectator for that,
Right.
because our AFG Nails. He is going to be competing at that Worlds event for VGC, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, they kind of do also have a card game that's
Yeah.
gonna be
That
there
totally,
too."
totally
Oops.
slipped my mind because I remember like talking about that too. Yeah. Um. That's it for competitive news. Oh yeah. Also Worlds for Pokemon.
Oh yeah, just a small event. Yeah,
That one of my teammates is playing it. No big deal.
it's all right. Well,
My bad, Nails. My
we're
bad.
shaking off the dust here.
Yeah.
Forgive us. Oh, well, all right. That is, I feel like a lot of news and a lot of tournament stuff. We're going to shift gears a little bit here and go into our roundtable topic. Now, you had brought up to me about potentially talking about like Twist and this Titans thing for Hearthstone because those are kind of major things. But I almost feel like there's some major things for multiple card games. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I have seen interest levels or like people's appeal for the games or the expansions or the new modes be like just all over the place. Like it's been kind of weird. So for example, for the Titans expansion, I have seen some people like, yes, I'm so excited for this Titan expansion. I'm so much more excited for that than I was for the Festival of Legends like theme, which I thought was very interesting because I feel like a lot of people really liked the music theme and were very excited for that. So then now to hear from these other people saying, I wasn't really interested in the music theme, but these Titans, yes, I'm super excited. Or people going, Twist, okay, that's terrible. I don't like it. So like what's going on with this like player interest and these different like modes and expansions? Like what's happening?
Yeah. There's a lot to cover. So, to start, for me personally, what I always find kind of funny is, I hear like mixed reviews. Oh, I'm excited. I'm not excited. I like this theme. I don't like this theme. I kind of always have like this consistent response, which is, oh, I'm really excited for this new expansion. I just love cards. Man, we're getting more cards. I love seeing these new cards come out. I want to play with the new cards. It's great. Um, but I'm not uh the I'm not the common response all the time. People are all over the place with how they feel about it. um I am, of course, as you might expect, having said that, really excited about Titans. But one thing that I was a bit surprised at my engagement with was Twist. New Hearthstone game mode. um Basically it takes a segment of expansions, and you can play with only these cards in this segment of the expansions. There's some other rules that they may or may not apply in the current iteration, the first iteration of it. You can only play with cards that are class cards. You can't play with any neutral cards at all in Twist, which I thought was an interesting wrinkle. And so I was kind of excited to try Twist. I queued up some games of it. I made some decks. I started playing, and it became very apparent very quickly that it was a mode that shared so many cards with the wild game mode, that has really powerful decks that you can make out of every single expansion ever in Hearthstone's history. There were a couple decks that were barely different from Wild that were in Twist, and they were really dominant in Wild. And when you get that kind of scenario, it means that people who want to win games in Twist are just going to keep jamming the things that are winning against every card ever in Hearthstone's history. So when you're more limited in Twist, it creates a meta that is more restrictive. They've already done a balance patch, to their credit, but Yeah, I lost my interest in it on the first day, and I have not played a game of Twists since. Um, I am still excited for the mode itself because they've announced that it's going to rotate. Every month, they're going to rotate it out. They're going to change up the rules. They're going to change up the sets. For me personally, the launch of it fell flat because there was way too much out there that was just incredibly overpowered, and the style of Hearthstone that I don't really enjoy that much. The style of Hearthstone gameplay that I was happy to see leave and stay in wild where it belongs. Get it away from me, But like, other people love it. At least some people really love it, and it's a cool, different type of way to play. It can bring back certain things that you were missing, styles of play that you liked. Just this current month of Twist, how they let it off is not the type of gameplay that I personally enjoy. So it was like, well, I'll just go play the stuff that I do enjoy and ignore Twist for a month. And then I'll check it out again and see if maybe it's something that I like again. But
Yeah.
it's interesting how that happens, and other game modes and engagement varies based on who you are and what you like.
Oh, definitely. And I think that that is just going to be how Twist literally just works in general. Because as you mentioned, every season, right? Ideally, that's a month, is going to be some different sort of deck building restrictions, some sort of rule set changes, what cards you may or may not be able to play with. I know I am allowed to say we did get to hear about Twist, and we got a lot of info on Twist in as part of the creator program. Like we got that perk, so we had a big meeting like before the blog post before it was announced. And just to be able to like hear from the devs talking about Twist and kind of like here's what this new thing is, we're going to be announcing it soon, was really cool. And I think just hearing the concept of it, a lot of us, like pretty much almost every creator that was there, was like, this sounds cool, I'm very excited for this. And I do agree, I think the initial like beta format that they had here, I, I think it just, like you said, fell flat. It just kind of missed for a lot of people. I think they kind of, in a way, maybe like took it safe in terms of like, okay, well, let's try to make this accessible in terms of most people probably have cards from the last couple of years of sets. You know, let's just bring that in. And it's kind of the opposite of, what Classic was, that they removed Classic and put Twist in. Right? Classic was like the very original cards. And now instead, then they added Twist, and it's the most recent stuff instead of the oldest. So I guess in that way, they kind of flipped it. But it's also, as you mentioned, it just feels like it's too similar to wild decks and even honestly just a lot of the standard decks that we've had currently or in the last year or two. So
Right.
it didn't feel like it was something different. It just kind of felt
Yeah.
like, yeah, here's here's a lot of the
Well,
same that you all
I
have already
mean,
been playing.
different enough, I guess, and it did bring
Yeah.
back like some things, some old favorites for certain people. The biggest failing, if I had to pinpoint it, is just that there was incredibly mixed reaction to United and Stormwind as a set, and that being part of Twist. Personally, I think was a mistake for month number one for launch for Twist, as far as driving up interest in it. Um, but I don't know, maybe if they had a more exciting type of meta, or one that could have connected a little bit more with a larger portion of the player base, it would have been upsetting for players to see it go after a month. So there's maybe two sides of that coin too. But I do feel like the idea to sort of play it safe, like it makes sense. Oh, people probably have more sets from more recently, so we'll do the sets that are more recent. But also, it seems like nobody looked at hey, what are the decks that are the most dominant in the wild format right now? Uh, are there a lot of shared cards in, the top decks in wild for what we're planning to release in twist, because it's just like pre-made decks that people can immediately jump in and dominate with if they've played some wild, or playing like at high ranks in wild or something. um Personally, I feel like quests in general were a mistake to have as an option in twist. um but I mean, they have their supporters too. People wanted to play that in a mode. So hey, here's your month. Enjoy, going crazy with quest stuff. Um, but for me, the last thing I wanted to see after, oh, thank God, quests finally rotated. Now we don't have to deal with quests anymore. Hey, here's a new game mode, and guess what? There's quests in there. Oh God. So
Yeah.
that I feel like maybe they could have just planned it out a little bit differently, possibly even made it slightly less accessible um, to some players, because it would have been harder to have, all of the cards for the sets, to have a more engaging meta to play in. Um, but it's really hard to say. It might have just still been the right move to lead off with, hey, these are the sets you're most likely to have. If you don't like the meta, just wait a month and then we'll do something new. And if you're interested in Twist, you can try to make sure that you aren't dusting wild cards anymore going forward, because they might be cards that you want to play in this mode.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's just going to be kind of the nature of Twist as a mode, just because it does change every month. The interest or appeal for Twist as a mode and whatever, deck building restriction, whatever kind of rule set they have every time, it's going to, you know, be really great for some of their months, and it's going to be probably not so great for some of them. So it's going to fluctuate a lot, I expect. And I think that's just kind of the nature of it. And I want to tie that in with some other card games and talking about, I mentioned, for example, like the Lord of the Rings set
True.
for Magic. you
But
know
wait, before you do, one last thing to say about
yeah.
Twist, because we'll shift on that. One other weird element: they made it restricted to only class cards. However, in the lead up with like watch streams and get card packs, and you have to get card packs for wild cards, you can open neutral cards in your card packs and then not be able to use them in Twist. Kind of a weird choice. um Sort of a feels bad moment a little bit for people if they're like, oh, I don't have enough cards to play from this expansion. Well, I'll get this expansion's card pack and I'll open it. Oh, I got 4 neutrals and 1 class card. Oh, it's a class I didn't even want to play anyway. Just as an example. um Sort of weird. We'll see if they mix up the rules. All right, want to make sure I said that before we
Yeah.
move on from Twist.
Well, and I mean, talking about like the player base that is interested in this, that's a good point you bring up. But I also wonder, like, how much of the player base, and we may never know these details, how much of the player base really had to like watch Twitch streams to earn some packs to open to actually play in the mode versus how many players just had some stuff already that could just build a deck
Right.
and play.
Yeah.
Because it's like, is it just a small portion of the player base that kind of is running into that issue of, wow, I just have to like try to get some packs, and oh no, I just opened a bunch of neutrals. That really sucks. I can't even like build a deck. Or is that not really a concern?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think even that kind of concept translates to a lot of this stuff, right? Just in card games in general. There's some card games like Hearthstone that some people like, I love this game. I'm going to play for 6, 10, 12 hours every single day. And then there's some people who are like, yeah, I hate the RNG. That game sucks. I'm never touching it again. And
Yeah.
then, quit. And you could say that for any single card game, right? Like, there's some people who are like, I love Marvel Snap. I love how fast the games are. I love this location concept. And then there's some players who are like, don't really care. I don't like the way that you earn cards. I'm not touching the game again, or whatever. Like, you're going to have that in every single game mode. And again, that kind of interest is going to fluctuate. So I'm now going to tie this back into that Lord of the Rings that I mentioned. For me, I understand. I know I love Lord of the Rings. So I know a lot of those characters. I know a lot of the kind of ideas and concepts. And that has drawn me to play more MTG Arena. Okay, I don't really play a lot of MTG, dabble in it here and there, but it's kind of more like a log in, like get some, free gold and then be like, okay, cool. Use this eventually at some point when I do play, maybe, who knows,
Just gotta save it, hoard it.
Yeah.
Like a dragon.
Log in for, exactly. That's what I do. Like, you just, all these games, I'm like, I just keep an eye on when they say log in for free stuff. And I'm like, cool, log in, get free stuff. And then it'll be like 2 or 3 months before I log in again. Who knows? But it has definitely drawn me back. The kind of concepts that they had with literally that like one ring that's worth, who even knows how much money. I've seen so many different numbers, but like that appeal of like, hey, buy these packs and be the one. Yeah. Like, be the one that opens the one ring. There was a lot of people who were just buying packs in hopes of opening that card.
Which is really funny. You might as well just buy lottery tickets, It's if that's your, I mean, at least you get to play with the cards, right?
Sure.
Hopefully, you have some interest in playing Magic if you're buying cards in the hopes that you get the one ring. It's like I can also play with these cards and have some fun.
But I mean, but again, there's that appeal for a different type of player base, right? Or a different type of player who maybe they do just want to buy a bunch of packs, try to open that card, and then they're just going to sell or give away the cards or whatever. If they have, some disposable income and that's what they want to do, like, more power to them. But that kind of idea and that concept that they put in that really drew in kind of a different audience. And just even bringing in Lord of the Rings, again, it's kind of a really well-known, universe. So to tie that in, really going to draw in people to try the game, try out different stuff, and that's going to fluctuate, right? The whole MTG universes, right? They're tying in these kind of well-known, popular things. Think later in like October-ish, I believe, is when it's coming out. Maybe November, for the DC, or not DC, oh my gosh, the MTG universes. One of the next ones is Doctor Who. So there's going to be Doctor Who Magic cards.
Right.
They've had a whole bunch of stuff. So they're tying these in. And there's going to be that kind of fluctuating interest, that fluctuating appeal. There's still going to be the players who they love Magic. That's what they play. Those are, there's going to be like that hardcore fan base who like they play Magic. They don't care what the set is. They're going to play for 6, 10, 12 hours.
Cards.
Right?
Maybe more cards. I want to play these cards now. Yeah.
But then there's going to be more of those kind of casual players or players who are like me. I'm like, okay, I might not consistently play Magic, but ooh, Lord of the Rings, that's cool. I'm going to play during Lord of the Rings. And then, maybe I'll still continue playing because of those cards. But when there's another new set, maybe it's not as interesting to me. I haven't really watched Doctor Who. I know. I'm sorry. I'm nerd and I haven't seen Doctor Who.
For
like
shame.
maybe I know.
That's Michelle's favorite show, actually.
Great.
I've seen so much Doctor Who. I'd actually highly recommend it. It's really good. But just add it to the list of things to get to eventually.
The list. Yeah. The ongoing, ever-growing list.
There's always more.
I know. And my mom's a huge Doctor Who fan. My husband has seen all the Doctor Who's, and it's just like I have not. But maybe for me that's not as appealing, and maybe I go and play something else. Um, but I just find it really interesting how these different, you're like I said, you're gonna have kind of that consistent hardcore, whatever you want to call them, dedicated players, no matter what it is, whether it's a certain game mode, a certain game in general, you're going to have those. And then you're going to have kind of an audience that varies and fluctuates depending on the meta or depending on what mode you're talking about or depending on what game you're talking about in general. Maybe there's some crossover, like me, right? I would say I'm a dedicated, consistent Hearthstone player, but I am also a more casual, like, yeah, sometimes I'm interested in this card game and like I show a lot of interest. And then maybe that interest kind of fades. And then maybe I try a different card game. I'm like really invested in that card game for a little bit. But I am a dedicated Hearthstone player all the time and a casual player in some of those other games or in some of the modes.
Right.
So,
You got your main game and you got your
yeah,
occasional side games.
yeah, and I think that goes for everybody. So it's just very interesting, and it's hard to evaluate some of these things in terms of is something a quote unquote success or like you're saying. I think a lot of the initial interest in Twist kind of did get deflated because a lot of people, at least vocally, were like, nah, I don't really like this kind of card set and this rule set that is out for the beta season. So it's just really interesting to me. And it's so hard sometimes to actually evaluate is something a quote unquote success or is a mode popular because we don't have all of those, like, you know, insights like the people
Right.
that work on the game. So what we see is just basically from social media or what people tell us. And sometimes that can be very, very skewed because we're not seeing the whole picture.
Hold up. Are you telling me that opinions on social media can sometimes be skewed? Dragon Rider?
Oh no,
I don't know if I buy that.
I'm telling you they're always skewed. There's no sometimes
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. Good to take
Oh.
things with a grain of salt, absolutely. Uh, I think the recording froze. Oh, are we back? I can't hear you.
Let me try unmuting and see if that works.
We're back. Hey,
Okay. You know what? Speaking of fading interest or opinions, Spectrum, come on. I'm so tired of your crap.
yeah.
We are getting Blue Peak very, very soon. And as soon as they put those cables in the streets and we can switch, we are freaking switching because I am so tired of Spectrum's crap. I get
I hear
disconnected
ya.
from the internet so often. So, not only do I like to sometimes switch card games, but I'm going to be switching internet providers. Take that,
Good
Spectrum.
plan. Yeah. I remember having Xfinity a little while back, and it was a nightmare. And then we were presented with like an option to do a Verizon thing, and just immediately jumped on it. No more regular internet issues. It's been nice.
Yeah, that sounds very nice. I certainly would like that, especially as, someone who's trying to make my living through the internet and,
Right?
doing things. So that sure would be nice to have something
Yeah, sure
consistent.
would be nice if it was reliable, guys.
Uh,
Guys, yeah.
so, yeah. Okay, so I apologize. I got disconnected and missed what you may have just previously said.
Oh, I think we were talking about how social media is always extremely reliable, and you can never uh, doubt anything that you hear on things like that. I'm pretty sure. I
Yeah.
may have mixed it
It
up. I can't remember.
it is social media opinions and bias is just as reliable as my Spectrum internet. All
Hey,
right.
see
There
what
we
you did
go.
there.
Perfect. And for audio listeners, I definitely gave a huge corny grin and a thumbs up because that was super sarcastic. Okay.
Nice.
Yes. So, anyways, so let's talk about. I would be interested now to talk about with some of these new card games coming out. We definitely have talked about them a lot in the like early part of the year. Just talked about in the news segment the new open beta starting up for DC Dual Force. Mentioned like Lorcana is going to be coming out pretty soon. There's a couple other card games have started up, and again, kind of that player interest and appeal. I would like to hear your opinion on what do you kind of think is going to happen with these card games. We could start with like I would say maybe the DC Dual Force and Lorcana kind of focus, because I feel like at least with very similar vein of like the Lord of the Rings thing, DC Comics and Disney are like very recognizable brands and names. So do you think that's going to kind of inflate the interest for these card games?
Absolutely, I do. I think it's pretty important for a new card game that's getting released most of the time to have some kind of established property that they're going off of. Um, if they aren't using some established property, then it's a little bit tougher to get it off the ground and derive some interest. They usually need to have some kind of interesting hook or game mechanic or something else that brings people in. Because otherwise, oh, why would I play a different game than like my main game? Why would I try this if you guys are doing the same thing as my game, but you have like just a brand new universe that I'm not invested in. Well, if you're invested in some universes already, okay, there's DC. Lots and lots of people have seen DC Comics movies. Some people, I'm sure, have read the comics themselves, but the movies have been massively popular, and there's tie-ins to so many things that you'd recognize. And then Disney, of course, it's also just omnipresent, and movies and media galore for Disney, and there's just huge set of established characters that people already have connections with. So I think those are like very significant types of properties that people have emotional attachments with, that have some connection to already, and you can make almost anything and people are at least going to give it a try. Be like, okay, I want to check this out. This is a property I care about. These are characters I'm invested in. I want to see this new thing that someone is doing with them. And the mechanics of the game themselves doesn't even have to really be that different from some other games. You probably don't want to make it a carbon copy, at least, but as long as it's the characters or the appeal, people are going to want to buy in and check it out. So I think that is a
Yeah.
huge boost to both of those games.
Oh, I think that you said something that really, I think, summarizes and encapsulates this entire discussion, like, no matter what it is. And you said that kind of emotional attachment, that like emotional response. And honestly, I can think of other examples. We had talked about it when, for example, like what Battle Spirits Saga was kind of in that initial launch phase, starting out, and okay, it was a popular game. The Battle Spirit Saga is kind of a reboot of, you know, like the original version from Japan that has been popular over there. They're trying to bring it, creating this and kind of bring it more into the kind of Western society, Western world to try to get more popular. And what did they do to advertise? They brought in and had social media posts with none other than Avril Lavigne posting with product and that kind of stuff. Talk about emotional response and trying to get people connected. And that was kind of their initial hook, right? Like, okay, we don't necessarily have this huge Disney or Marvel or DC kind of connection because our game is like our game and it's based on this other thing. So how else do we try to draw in audience? How do we try to
Mhm.
get more people noticing this game and get that kind of emotional attachment? And yeah, through things like celebrities and big influencers.
I mean,
That's
America loves their celebrities, so
yeah,
yeah,
yep,
like people will just flock to a particular celebrity that they like. If the celebrity says, "Hey, I'm gonna do this thing. You should do this thing," they're like, "Okay, I'll do that thing." So it's a smart marketing move for sure. What they did,
yeah,
since there was no pre-established connection with the audience, so they used a pre-established connection. Hey, you guys like Avril Lavigne? She says play Battle Spirit Saga. How about it? Give it a try. It's a good move.
yeah, yeah. And it's just, I don't know. Just as soon as you said that, I was like, that's what it is, and that is why things can be so hit or miss, and people are kind of left with that sometimes a bad taste, that kind of that expression, right? They're left with a bad taste in their mouth for a certain mode or a certain game overall, right? There was, I would say, a lot of very negative kind of response to some things that Marvel Snap tried at the beginning,
Hmm.
and that sentiment has carried through. It is still a very popular game. Don't get me wrong. They have a huge player base. It's still very popular, but there's also a large player base who, don't like the way that the collection kind of works, that you get cards. There's players who really don't want to touch it again after some really kind of really bad what like I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. Essentially money grab feels
Yes.
during the kind of closed and like before it actually launched, right? Like the closed beta kind of phase of the game. And that sentiment has carried through. And it's just like it's going to be the same. I worry about that a little bit with like Twist. This first one, as we mentioned, really not connecting with a lot of people. A lot of people kind of are like, this is not great.
Yeah.
I think the same thing kind of happened with Mercenaries for Hearthstone, right? I think it was a really cool concept. I was so excited for Mercenaries. I think it could have been so great, but for a lot of players, it really just had that, hey, we're just putting this out to get a bunch of money, pay us a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
This is a really expensive, but you'll do it because it's Hearthstone and you like it. Give us
Well,
money.
we
And
had a we had a stark contrast too. Like
yeah,
Mercenaries was the next big mode for Hearthstone, and the previous next big mode was Battlegrounds. And just the dramatic difference between the two. Battlegrounds still right now I can queue up a game of Battlegrounds and have zero collection or anything, and I can play that for free, and I can get a very similar experience to people who are paying for Battlegrounds. Not exactly the same. The heroes are limited. There's other things, and that's changed over time because they tried to monetize it more. But when they released Battlegrounds, it was just pure. This is completely free. I mean, that drew in a lot of people who were like, hey, standard Hearthstone is too expensive. I can't keep up with all these card releases, and I have to buy packs to even have a competitive deck. I can be exactly as competitive as everyone else playing this brand new game mode that's fun and interesting. You can also compare like auto battlers to, there are different elements of what made Battleground succeed where Mercenaries failed. But I think a huge part of it really was, hey, we're going hard on monetizing Mercenaries. Like pay us money for this and that and this and that, and then you can have like a good successful experience in it. Sadly, it is kind of the approach that Marvel Snap has taken too, which is, you know, uh, pay us money for everything all of the time, it seems. I play Marvel Snap and really enjoy it, and I haven't spent anything on the game and have no plans to spend anything on the game because I can play it casually and, I can have fun. The game itself is very fun. It's designed very well, but the limitations are extreme. And they're there, it seems, designed very specifically for one purpose and one purpose only, which is to squeeze money out of you. And players can react pretty negatively to stuff like that. Um, for me, it sent a clear message. Okay, I'll never spend money on this game, like ever, because it's too much. It's too over the top. I understand your game needs to make money. I should support that. Like I don't want the game to die, and if you never make a profit, the game dies. But don't approach it in that kind of way. I don't know. It doesn't feel right.
Right. Yeah. That negative sentiment really does go a long way for players. And, as I mentioned, like that can last. There's some players who, even for like Hearthstone standard, right?
Mhm.
They're like, oh, 6 years ago there were these like super RNG decks, or a bunch of like created by, and I hated it, and I never touched Hearthstone again because
Yeah.
of that, you know, few month maybe period,
Yep.
or that like 8 months, and they were like, nope, never touching it again. Even though some of that has really been addressed now, or there's been changes made that maybe are moving in the right direction, sometimes it's really hard to come back from those super like negative emotional responses.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of hard, but I think that really does not even just the monetization, right, but negative impact with gameplay or certain modes, or whatever it is, like even the companies, stuff that happens with companies, right?
Right.
I'm sure we could come up with quite a few for Blizzard, just off the
Yes.
top of our heads,
Yes, we could.
sadly, and sometimes that's all it takes. So there's so many factors that I didn't even think about, honestly, like before we started our discussion, that really do go into like people's interest in the certain game or a certain mode or whatever it is, that they can be very lasting effects.
It makes me really not envy the job of a game designer because it is exceptionally difficult. I mean, you're talking like the core of our discussion has kind of started to center around like people's emotional responses, and I mean, good luck trying to pinpoint, how the collective masses are going to emotionally respond to like fluctuations in your game and things totally outside of your control, and so many other like game economy is a whole other separate topic that also feeds into their emotions and connection with the game, as well as just like the game design and the balance. And just one card gets printed and someone loses their mind and says never again, that's a thing that happens too. So it's
Yeah.
just wild, like the amount of effort and difficulty that gets put into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I don't want this to come across as like uh negative emotions are the only ones that impact, because I do think there are tons of positive reactions and positive emotional responses that also impact people's interest and appeal for, again, the game itself or a certain mode. I could say for Hearthstone, for example, I have heard so many people say, I keep playing Hearthstone because of the community, because of the people I've met through the game.
Yes.
And that, like, that literally has nothing, like, the Blizzard, the game designers, the community managers, nobody has quite the same, like, they cannot really do anything about that, right? If
Yeah.
you go into a community and you meet awesome people, you might play that game or that mode for years, years without, and maybe otherwise you would have been like, nah, I'm not going to play this after like, a couple of months or something.
Right.
So there definitely, I think a lot of like in-person events. I know after COVID kind of shut a lot of things down, and then even just kind of I'm just going to say the kind of downfall, the downslide of like Hearthstone esports, for example, uh, not having in-person events and in-person tournaments, that has had an impact on people's reception of the game because they love that aspect, right? They want those in-person interactions or that, feeling of belonging or whatever it is, those good, happy emotions as well do
Right.
also have an impact in people's interest. So I definitely don't want it to sound like the negative are the only things, because it's certainly not. But I think
Yeah.
it's in the short term, it's much easier to see the negative reactions because those are usually much faster. The negative reactions are more of an instant reaction when stuff happens, whereas I feel like the positive reactions are things that are more kind of built over time. So it's sometimes a little bit harder to see that, or takes a little bit longer to see the um, good things that people react and keep people playing games.
That's a really excellent point because the negative emotions and reactions to things, they just garner more attention just naturally. People's people are upset, they're shouting, they're look at me, and it draws your interest faster to that kind of issue. But we were talking about interest in some other card games that are like about to launch or doing, new modes and the like. Twist in Hearthstone is part of it, where it can feed into the positive emotions that people feel about seeing cards come back that they wanted to play with. Um, for Disney Lorcana, which is going to be releasing pretty soon, they're building a very large player base that is very interested in the game, and that is in very large part, I think, connected to so many positive emotions that people have about Disney characters in general. And it's the same with like the DC game that's coming out too. You could remember like, oh, I went with my family and I saw this Batman movie like way back. If you're well, we don't need to talk about ages.
Yeah.
Any number of Batman movies. There's old ones, there's new ones, different DC movies, obviously that recently came out too. But you could have like a really positive emotion that you tied to maybe like that movie going experience or something, or a comic book that you read, and now the character that you loved so much in that property that you saw is coming to a game, and you get to play like with or as that character, and that's something that feeds into those positive emotions and gets people to say, oh yeah, I really want to try this game and start investing into it. So there are so many different things too, as far as the positive aspect that draws in players, that builds player interest and maintains player interest over the years to make a healthy game. So yeah, really good point to bring up. Hey, it's not just the negative. The positive has a very large impact on these games too.
Yeah. And talking about like new games or even new modes, it's kind of interesting to look, if you kind of step back and look and say, okay, if even if there is this like very positive response or this excitement, there's always a lot of hype around something new. And it's a matter of how maybe the game developers or the community as a whole try to foster and maintain that like hype and positive energy to kind of keep that going, because I do feel like you said, it's pretty easy to get into that the negative stuff, or it comes so naturally, just I mean for humans in general, like literally looking at the negative stuff like is just, it's literally wired into our brains. There's like studies on this and everything, like the negativity is wired into us. So to try to figure out how to maintain the hype, maintain the positivity, and kind of foster that long term is definitely something that's very difficult. But I think that that's an important aspect for keeping players interested and engaged in the variety, of card game aspects that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think that was a really good discussion. I don't know if you have any other like thoughts or anything else that you wanted to mention, whether it's like Twist or like Hearthstone specific or just anything overall. But
I mean, just for specifically like Hearthstone, because again, that is my main game that I spend lots and lots of time on. I am really excited to see how the Masters Tour is going to shake out in August. We've got some time before that rolls around. I'm super hyped for the expansion, which is coming out in a couple of weeks, and I am also pretty excited to see what the next month of Twist is going to bring. I'm very much looking forward to it because I I really like the concept that they have for the game mode, even though the first month of it, for me personally, it was a miss. It was a complete miss. I'm not interested in playing in that kind of meta. But it's going to change and it's going to continually change. And I really want to see how the mode develops. So, as far as like long term things, that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most is how does Twist change and develop over the course of each month as they alter it to these are the new sets and this is what's going to be played. I'm super excited to see the direction that goes.
oh, I 100% agree. I'm excited for that, the kind of idea of Twist overall. Um, Yeah, definitely going to be interesting. I'm personally hoping for like some sort of popper mode or something like, no legendaries allowed and like see how
There
that
you
pans
go.
out because,
I like that idea. Yeah, there have been
yeah,
popper tournaments, there have been all kinds of things like that. And I mean, accessibility is addressed really easily there. Like, hey, all this expensive stuff that you have or that you might have to compete, it's out the window. All the cards to play in this are cheap. That would be cool. Here's hoping.
yeah, yeah, and I think it kind of touches like a special place in my heart too because for a while I was doing what I called, I think it was like a monthly Dragon Cup or something, and every month I would host a tournament myself, just for like my viewers and anybody that wanted to play, and I came up with different, deck building restrictions or different like requirements every time. So this kind of feels like that, but in a instead of a single tournament, it's a month long ladder thing. So
Right.
I'm definitely interested to see what they come up with. I also, if anybody at Blizzard is listening, oops, all mechs. Can we have like an oops all mechs meta? I love mechs, and especially with all these
Nice.
magnetized things that they're adding for this expansion, like give me like a mech month that's like bring in, the what was it? Goblins versus Gnomes, GVG from like way
Oh
back
yeah.
when. Give me like this set. Like, let's mix it all together and just like, I want to play some mechs. Let's go. Oops, all mechs meta. Come on.
That would be kind of funny, actually. I think I'd like that. At least the concept of it. Um, in practice, I
Yes.
have no idea because I haven't like
It would
done a
probably
bunch
be
of mech fights. But
it would probably be very samey, I would imagine.
yeah,
um yeah. So
oops, all mech week maybe.
yeah, that would be great.
I like it.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you for chatting through that main topic with me. I feel like we jumped around quite a bit, but I think it was a very good conversation. There was a lot of different stuff to talk about in that.
Absolutely. I mean, it was at least loosely tied into our um our overall topic. Player interest and appeal can go in so many different directions. But that was fun.
Yes, yes, completely agree. Well, I think it is time to wrap up here. So, thank you for joining us this week as we get back to doing our TCCG Roundtable. And we're, aiming to be back to our more consistent every week now. So, if you or someone would like to join us on the show, if we would love having guests and chatting with other people from around different card games. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can contact us at tccgroundtable@protonmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at TCCG Roundtable. You can also get from the Twitter in our top pinned tweet. You can join our Discord, or you can find that in the show notes or the YouTube description as well. And, we are also not only on YouTube, as I just mentioned, that's my YouTube channel, dragonrider TCCG, but also anywhere that you can find audio podcasts if you want to just listen to us chatting instead of looking at us. So you can check out that audio version everywhere. And, if you are a card game player and you're looking for some sweet, merch, some super cool play mats, dice bags, all sorts of different stuff, and you can help support us directly with our Inked Gaming affiliate link. So you can find that and get some cool stuff for yourself on Inked Gaming and support us along the way. And where can people find you individually, Ron, if they want to go check out all of the stuff that you're doing?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Ron_HS. You can find me at YouTube at RonMexico HS. And I stream on Twitch Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And you can find me there at RonMexico HS as well. Where can they find you, Dragon Rider?
Well, I would say, I think probably right before we went on our unintended hiatus, I did launch my official website. So all of my Twitter, my YouTube videos, everything that I do, both this podcast and my other podcast for Standard Hearthstone, all of that is linked on my website, so you can find a bunch of stuff about me and the content that I do over at dragonridertccg.com. And I think that is going to do it for us this week. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you at the roundtable.